Welcome to the Intentionists podcast, where we explore the interplay between intuition, spiritual health, and everything in between. I'm your host, Amy Schreiber.
And I'm Hilary Zwallen. Our intention is to create a dialogue that inspires you to consciously forge your path with curiosity and compassion for life and its mysteries.
Welcome to our episode today. We are discussing color and what it means across different cultures and religions, as well as its biological and psychological impact on us.
Yes, it's episode 14 today, the magic and mythology of color. So before we get started, we have a quick announcement. We have got a Facebook group that we have called the Intentionist Circle. And yes, it's a place where you can come. It's a private Facebook group. So if you want to talk about the mysteries of the universe and you don't want your bigoted uncle from somewhere else to see what you're saying, or you don't want your people that don't believe the way that you do or that are not on the same path as you to see, but you still want to be engaging with them on Facebook, this is a great place for you to come because it's a private Facebook group. We assume that everyone that's going to be there is somewhat like-minded, and we're hoping to create a safe place for people to discuss these ideas and explore these types of all the topics we talk about here on the Intentionists. So, yes. So join us. Come join us. Follow us on Facebook. We're also very active on Instagram. I think that's kind of where we're at right now. We keep discussing maybe doing a Pinteresty thing, but there's only two of us here.
Little by little. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So you can also drop us a line at intentionists@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you if you have ideas for shows, if you want to give us feedback, if you have questions. We would love to hear from you, our listeners.
Yes,
and let's move on into the show.
Yes. So color is light. Light is visible energy, and the different wavelengths, amplitudes, and saturation of this energy create the visible color spectrum. And most of this, before I dive in, most of the information for this episode, we are pulling out of the art textbook called Contemporary Color Theory and Use by Stephen Bleicher. I don't know how to say his name, but
Bleicher for those of you listening, if you want to find him.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry if we butchered your name, Stephen.
I'm sorry. Yes. But yeah, so a little bit of history about color. In the Western world, Sir Isaac Newton is considered the father of modern color theory. He's the one who refracted the white light through a prism to see the spectrum. And then earlier than him, we have Leonardo da Vinci, who described the 6 major hues, and he correlated all these with the natural elements. So to him, black was night, blue was air, green, water, red, fire, yellow, earth, and white is light.
And we think that he pulled this from just the kind of whatever the church was using. I mean, we don't know for sure why he assigned those meanings to those colors. Do we?
No, I mean, I think, he was really religious. And so I think he was heavily influenced by the church's view on like the existing color associations back then.
And the symbolism behind it.
Right.
Interesting.
So that's the Western, like a small part of the Western side of things. In the Eastern world, we had early color theory systems arising, like the Feng Shui color compass from Asia, which those colors are associated with direction and the elements. And there's really 8 of them in this color wheel. And then in India, there was the chakra color system, which a lot of you may be familiar with. And we will get more into that later when we talk religion. But today, color is used in all sorts of ways. In our houses, in our clothes. And the science of healing with colors is called chromatherapy.
Cool. So rather than making it an art lesson, we're going to take the spiritual approach like we always enjoy to do, right? So let's talk about let's talk about the science of healing with colors. You had some really interesting points on this when we were discussing our research earlier. So tell me about the study.
Yeah, so there's been studies on the biological impact of putting patients in different colored rooms. So if you put patients in a green room, all their capillaries dilate, and it also reduces homesickness for kids at summer camp. The kids in the green room were not homesick, the other ones were. And then in a red room, the patients had increased muscle tone, increased skin temperature, and raised blood pressure. And then blue was the opposite effect. It lowered skin temperature, blood pressure, and the pulse rate. So these effects were the same whether or not the patient could see. So in blind patients, they had exactly the same effects as the sighted patients, which I thought was really crazy.
So crazy, yeah. Well, I've wondered this before when I've gone to different healers and they're like, wear yellow or whatever, like open up your second chakra or your third chakra. So wear yellow if you want, if you need to feel powerful or whatever. And I was always like, I like a lot of that stuff, but there's sometimes where I hit my BS point and I'm like, how does that really work? Right. That's like my skeptic where I'm just like, okay, I love the crystals. I love the oils. I love the meditation. But like at some point I'm like, really, I got to wear yellow now, or I got to go lay in a blue room. But this is an interesting study that talks about like why, or maybe not so much why, but just that it is in existence, that if you can't see that you have the same response when you're surrounded by a certain color that someone who can see, which would then lead us to believe that there is something with the actual frequency or whatever that's been given off by the color. That's really interesting.
Yeah, well, it makes sense if color is just a certain wavelength of energy and we are all made of energy, that it would have a measurable impact on us, which it does. And there's also a condition called synesthesia where people perceive color with their non-visual senses. So like they'll hear color or they'll be able to like feel it like tactilely, like touch it. There were studies where a patient could like stick their hand under a colored light without being able to see it and tell what color it was. So that's another like really interesting brain condition.
Yeah. My husband and I were talking about this a few months ago. We were having a conversation and he was saying, so when you think of like the months of the year, what do you think in your, like, how does that show up in your brain? And I was like, oh, they're color coded. Like, I feel like January is a little bit darker and I go through, and he was like, that is not how it is for me at all. And not that that's synesthesia, but I just thought it's interesting that in our brains, we associate, like, I definitely feel like when I think in terms of time, there's a color spectrum in my mind associated with the fall and with the winter and with different memories. And that's how it works in my brain. Not that that's synesthesia, but just the idea that there's color and that the way that our brains remember things can be connected to that. I don't know.
Right.
Has that ever happened to you, or is it just me? I'm weird.
No, I think about weird color-coded things sometimes, like songs, like hearing songs and sounds, they often like create certain colors in my mind. But yeah, all of that, like what we just talked about, those are innate biological responses. And then there's also like these learned cultural, psychological responses to color, like different associations depending on where you live geographically in the world and what the surrounding culture is. Carl Jung, he talked about color in the book Man and His Symbols. And he saw the artist's use of color as a manifestation of the subconscious. Ah,
okay. So, for example, if you're looking at like let's say I'm thinking of like Gauguin or some of Picasso's earlier works that are like really vibrant. So Carl Jung would say, well, his choice of using colors that aren't really associated with the item in reality. Like you're painting a tree, but instead of it being blue, green leaves and a brown trunk, it's like pink leaves and a yellow trunk. Is that what he's talking about? That there's some manifestation of the subconscious as to like why the artist would pick the color, or can you expound on that?
Well, yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know. But I think that it includes like no matter what color, no matter if it's like true to life colors or non-realistic colors, whatever the choices is a manifestation of what's going on underneath.
Something to notice about your own inner world as to why you would choose to paint that subject and the way you would paint that subject. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Well, there's a color personality test called the Bleicher. I don't know if I'm saying that name right, but it's the Bleicher color test, and we'll put the link to this little quiz on our episode notes. Mm-hmm. But it was really interesting because it was just basically, what color are you most drawn to? Like, not necessarily having to be your favorite color, but out of this set of colors, and they were kind of like weird hues. They weren't just like the straight Roy G. Biv
primary colors. Yeah.
Yeah, and then depending on which one was your first pick, it was it says, oh, you're more inclined to this or that, and it was pretty accurate. Me and my husband did it, and it was.
This isn't the same thing as like the color person test where you're like, I'm a yellow or I'm a blue red or when this is different.
No,
okay.
This is different.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. Do you want to talk about Kirilian photography?
Yeah. Have you ever seen one of those photos?
I have.
Yeah, it's where they photograph like the electromagnetic field and aura around a living thing. They do it for people, but they can do it for like plants and animals too.
Wow.
The colors with that, they're associated kind of with the chakras. Yeah, do you want to go through and the brief meanings that they use in chromatherapy? Like general healing uses for color today, they kind of have these associations.
Let's see. So red's the most dense, and it enhances energy and stimulates RBC production, which is
red blood cells.
Thank you. So the orange is associated with youth, curiosity, increases sexual stimulation, pleasure, creativity. It should be noted, by the way, that in our chakra system, red is our root, and our root is like basically what happened. It's where we lay our information down from age 0 to 7. Mm-hmm. Kids when they're like 0 to 7, they're in that stage where they're dependent on the parent. Then you move into teenage years, would be associated more with like the sacral chakra. This is like your sexual awakening, puberty. It's also your organs and creativity, sex drive. So these also correspond with very much in line with the chakra system and what the chakras are associated with. Creativity in that second chakra. Yellow is, in this, it says antibacterial properties, but then it also says wisdom and clarity, which would be our third chakra is more like where our identity is. It's where we house our fear. It's where we house our focus. It's where we house our identity and what we project out into the world. This is a lot of it's like our anger, our fear, our power. It's like our power center in our body.
Yeah, the power center.
Yeah, it's also the third chakra, but the color yellow is associated with that. Green is used to treat bacterial infections, stomach ulcers, calming in the middle of the spectrum, so it brings balance. But green with the chakra system is your heart chakra, and that's everything that's associated with what we would think of with your heart: love. Love of self, love of others. Our sadness is also held there. Our woundings can be held in our heart space. Blue decreases toxins and promotes knowledge and self-confidence. Blue would also be associated with the fifth chakra. That would be communication, our ability to speak our truth. And indigo would be our sixth chakra or third eye. It aids intuition, inspiration. It's our ability. It's basically our ability to see things that we don't necessarily see with our regular eyes. And then, of course, violet is our seventh chakra, which is calming the nervous system, promotes creativity and spiritual awakening. Our seventh chakra would be our connection to the divine. And so those really they align. I wonder which came first, right?
Well, I'm sure. Well, I think this list comes from like modern uses, like in chromatherapy. So I'm sure it was derived from all the chakra
ancient system,
chakra stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
I thought it was interesting as I was looking, because all across the world, different colors mean different things. In some parts of the world, like for example, blue in the United States, that's like America's favorite color, and it's trustworthy. It's really good.
Right, regal.
Right, and calming. They used to paint the Virgin Mary in art. They painted her clothes blue. They would crush up lapis lazuli, the gem, and they would make her clothes with that. And so, yeah, I think coming from that, it's like always been this really positive color. But in Asia, blue is really bad. It's like the color for villains and death and like mold and rotten fermentation stuff.
Wow.
But purple was the only color that didn't really have any negative connotations, like across the whole world. The violet was the winner,
that's interesting. And that's
winner.
the seventh chakra associated with a connection to the divine. Well, I love that you brought up, that there's other cultures that they assign different meaning to the colors, because I just think so often I'm influenced by my own Western lens, and it's just really helped me on my own spiritual path to just challenge all my beliefs by going, well, I mean, what if I was born in Asia? What if I was born in India? What if I was born in Africa? I would have been raised with a different set of thoughts about truth, about divine connection. And maybe it's good for me to just constantly question that and wonder, what, just because we have been socialized to believe that whatever it is, color, your religious belief, whatever that is one way doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only way, or that it is even the right way. Like, what's the right way, right? It's just a way.
Well, yeah, these are all just culturally defined things. It's one of the things that I really loved about living in Mexico and learning about their customs. I mean, it's a lot of the same stuff because it's pretty close geographically, but a big difference here is that, I mean, they love bright colors. I was talking to my Spanish teacher, and she was saying like, oh yeah, Mexicans, they like the colores vivos, like the alive colors, because I mean, if something's faded, and that means it's dead. Like it's not a good thing to be a faded
and
color.
Influenced by the environment. Although I know a lot of Mexico is very desert, arid climate, but it's still warm. And I know I always think of like those bright colors. Yeah.
Right. Well, and then the other thing here, yellow is associated with mourning. Yellow is the color of mourning. And because of in the Day of the Dead customs and celebrations, they have all those yellow flowers everywhere. They're called cempasúchil. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but like the Aztec marigolds. And the scent of this flower is meant to guide and welcome the souls of the dead home back to their relatives. And so yellow is like for dead people, like you don't give your girlfriend yellow flowers, or your mom. Like that's only for the dead.
Wow. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Where I think here it's like black, we're in mourning. And I think in a lot of cultures, black is kind of the color of mourning. Yellow just seems so bright and happy and vibrant and alive, really. When I think of a color in my mind that would signify aliveness, it's like yellow, the sun, right?
Right.
I like that. I like that yellow's associated with death, because is there a connection with the rebirth factor, like where if the sun shines, it brings its light and causes a rebirthing. Is there anything with that, or who knows?
I don't know. Probably. I mean, in a lot of the ancient cultures, the sun deity is like the resurrection deity, and so or like the rebirth one. So probably there is a bit of that.
Interesting. Yeah.
The other interesting thing about like geographic variations in color, in a lot of like in the States, green is like, oh, life and fertility and awesomeness. But in places with really dense jungle areas, green is like danger, death. Because the jungle is like this wild place that will kill you.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it all depends on where, like the geography around you and what it means.
I was just thinking, my husband and I have been doing like a Naked and Afraid binge. Have you seen that show? It is. Oh my gosh, you cannot look away if it comes on. It's like it like mesmerizes you. It's this crazy show. I don't even know what channel it's on. It's like on Discovery or something. They drop these two people, they're like survivalists in these really crazy places like the Amazon jungle or the Sahara Desert, or, well, it's not usually the desert, but it's like the Kenyan savannah or like the Everglades. And they make them survive for 21 days with no clothes on. And they get like one item. They can bring in like a fire starter or like a machete or a tarp or whatever they want to bring, but they only get to bring one thing. And then they have to make shelter and they have to live. And they live like these kind of like cave people and try to survive off the land. And they're eating like bugs and snakes and just it's the craziest. Like, I don't understand. I'm just like, why would anyone want to do this? But it's made me think a lot, like you were saying about this jungle stuff. It's made me think a lot about, you know, I think of Mother Nature as like this magical, wonderful mother that holds me and it's just this beautiful thing that I want to honor. But that's because I live in a house where I can just flip on the thermostat when I'm cold and I can turn on the AC when I'm hot and I've got running water and showers. And watching that show has really made me think, man, I mean, Mother Nature is fierce and it's taken us a long time. You know, we're really kind of at the mercy of the elements. You see these people in their little, you know, grass huts that they make or their little holes that they dig to live in for a few weeks. And it's just like the stuff they have to endure is just, it's insane.
Yeah, the color, when you're out surviving, I'm sure it would be really important for them to understand like what colors mean as far as poisonous, like what bugs, what frogs are poisonous. Because usually like the poisonous ones are the super bright, beautiful things.
Right. Yeah, totally. Just that idea that like green means danger. I get that when you say that about the jungle people after watching that show. It's changed my perspective a little bit. Anyway, so moving on.
Yeah. So our preferences of color heavily dependent on the geography, but also our socioeconomic status influences what colors we prefer. Like there's been a bunch of studies that said if you are in a higher socioeconomic bracket, you prefer darker, less saturated hues, and lower socioeconomic status prefer bright, pure hues. So I thought that was really interesting. He was saying that if a brand is trying to appeal to the widest amount of people, like mass appeal, orange is like the mass appeal color. It's not like trying to cater to upper class or the lower class. It's like the mass appeal color.
Interesting.
I wouldn't have ever thought that. I would have thought it would be like blue, but
yeah, that's really
apparently
interesting.
The studies have said orange.
Interesting. Yeah, totally.
So around the world, people have used color in their religious ceremonies, and it means different things depending on the religious beliefs and the history in that religion. And just to start off, I wanted to talk about sand paintings because those are so pretty.
I love sand paintings.
So they used to grind up like gemstones, like rubies and turquoise and all these fine gemstones for sand paintings. Yeah, I just thought that was like really cool that they use such valuable things for their sand painting that they're just going to dump in the river and like wash away to keep the balance of the universe going.
Is that the idea, that they would do the sand painting and then they would discard the sand?
Yeah, they don't save it. It's meant to, I mean, I think in Asia it's meant to really be a practice of non-attachment and like, yes, we do this thing and it's this beautiful, beautiful piece of art, but we're not going to be attached to that. We're just going to blow it away like everything, because everything changes and everything eventually just gets blown away in the end. So
I like that.
I think it's a meditation on that.
It reminds me a little bit of the tithe, like the spirit of the tithe, right? Where it's like, well, you pay this money and you can't be attached to it because it's God's money, right? It's like these rubies are God's, so just send them back. They're not even yours to begin with. I like that idea though, the non-attachment. That's really interesting.
I think, in the United States, the Navajo tribe, or they're called the Dene, they use sand paintings. It's like believed to be what keeps the universe in equilibrium. It is what's holding everything together. And it has to be a very certain design, certain colors that mean certain things, and they cannot be deviated from, or else, I don't know.
In my shamanic training, sand paintings are a big part of each direction. And when you're doing your own personal work, you use the sand painting to So you set up a little, and it can be just dirt. Like when I was doing my first one, I just had a little like dirt patch in my backyard that I had designated. And you open sacred space, and you take whatever personal issue you're working on, and you blow it into rocks and sticks and, perishable objects from nature. And you infuse the sand painting with all of that energy. And then you let the earth like mulch and miqui all of that energy that you've placed into this painting. And then when you're ready to close out your sand painting, you remove all the objects and you put them in a ceremonial fire and you burn them. So it's like, all right, those are going up. They're like you're trying to detach from whatever beliefs are limiting you or whatever, it's kind of a therapeutic way of using the earth's energy and also creating a ritualistic ceremony for your own experience. So I get that in that way that, but it's for the way that I was taught, it's more like, you can use any kind of sand you want, whatever's, near your area. It's not so much like find all this valuable stuff, grind it up, and then throw it to the wind.
Right. So it doesn't matter the colors?
No. I actually ended up going and getting, because I was doing it so often, I ended up creating with like little pavers, a little like tiny sandbox. But you could use it like a 13 by 9 inch pan and put some sand in and do it that way, So I think the idea is that, and again, this is like, I would say that the shamanism that I'm learning is rooted in Incan, but there's also kind of a new agey twist to it. So it's a lot more like whatever works, man, So
there wasn't like the sacred colors for this direction are specifically.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't included. It was more about finding, perishable objects from that area and putting them in the painting. Anyway, back to color. So religious and cultural.
Yeah, let's go through just like the different religions and how in general colors have been viewed. So in the Christian world, white is purity and innocence, black is death, green is life, red is blood and sin, blue is honesty, and violet is like holiness, quietness, and yellow is usually associated with divine light and all the halos that are always around the holy people in the paintings. Why don't you talk about Judaism?
Okay, so Judaism, blue is God's glory. Red is both life, joy, and sin. Purple is redemption, purification. White is life and death.
And in Islam, green is kind of their main holy color. It's earth, life, and it's what they cover the Quran in a green covering. And then blue has to do with paradise and the afterlife. Red is courage and sacrifice. White is purity. And black is humility. And I think that I was reading that men are not supposed to wear red. If it's like the main color, they're usually supposed to wear white. And women are supposed to wear black.
Interesting. I feel like that's the religion I know the least about. Is Islam. Hinduism, red is happiness, joy, marriage. It destroys evil. Yellow is used on the quest for enlightenment. Holy men's robes. It's on holy men's robes. It burns out impurities. Blue is signifying of the lower caste and fermentation, but also associated with Rama, Krishna, Shiva. So green is for the merchants. It's also fertility, nature. White is death and mourning, and black is bad luck and avoided.
Yeah, like you should not wear black.
Yeah. Do you want to talk Buddhism?
Yeah, let's, Buddhism. So colors for there, I guess the rainbow body is what happens when your body is transformed into pure light through meditation. So that has all the colors, and that's kind of like the goal of Buddhist meditation, and depending on what group you're in. But in general, blue signifies light and wisdom. Turquoise is safe journey and long life. And then the darker blue is purity and healing. Green is harmony, karma, action, youth, and balance. Yellow is humility, stability, and separation from materialism. Again, with the monks' robes are usually yellow. And orange is Buddha's wisdom and teachings, and red is good luck, achievement, and virtue.
Cool. So let's talk really quick, because I know we need to wrap it up here, about Iris, the goddess of rainbows. Do you want to tell the Iris story?
There's not really a story about her, but she is the goddess of the rainbow and the messenger of the Olympian gods. So this is Greek mythology. She's usually shown with golden wings, and she carries a water pitcher that's either full of nectar or full of water from the river Styx. And she's the goddess of sea and sky. Her father is a marine god, and her mother is a cloud nymph. So for the coastal Greeks, they would see the rainbow, and it usually was from the sea into the clouds. And so they believe that the goddess would bring the rain clouds, water from the sea, and also bring messages between the gods and from humans to gods.
Interesting. You can kind of imagine what it would be like trying to make sense of, like, if you don't have science and understand how rainbows are created, what a miraculous experience it is. I always think of, like, was it the triple rainbow or the double rainbow guy on YouTube? Did you ever see that viral video?
Yeah, I think it was a double.
So
yeah, I think
yeah.
I love that.
I know,
one.
me too. But you could see how it's like you would want to associate that with some serious divine moment, because they really are so spectacular when you see them in real life.
Yeah. When I lived in Washington, it was like my favorite thing, because there was a rainbow almost every day, and it was just, every day a double rainbow, and life was a miracle.
What does it mean? Yeah, dude, Washington. I'll never forget that trip when I came up to visit you. I mean, what a magical place that place is.
Yeah, beautiful,
just walking through the forest with all the tiny moss growing and all that. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yes.
Okay. So really quick, before we wrap up, we'll just talk about, a little, like, I did a little research on ritual uses of color, and the article that I had read was talking about candle magic and the idea of using a different colored candle for whatever affirmation you wanted to bring into the world. And basically what the guy said was, each candle, when you light it, it lights the same. It creates fire, and fire is the same color, whether it comes off of a red candle or a white candle. And I'm sure there are people that who practice this stuff that would maybe disagree, but this is basically from this article that I read. And according to this guy, he was saying the thing if you want to experiment more with sensing color, the experiment you can do, you'll find you're better off finding like either stained glass, or he was saying that there's a lot of like that 70s mercury glass that has different colors, and holding that up to the light and allowing the color that's infused with the light, to go on your body and to kind of see, like, do you notice a different frequency, whether you're standing in front of like red stained glass or green stained glass or, clear glass, and just kind of exploring what the different vibration is coming through glass, because then what's the idea is that the light is actually streaming through rather than it coming from a candle that's a different color.
Right.
Not that you can't use a candle, like if red has a significant meaning to you and you want to assign, red is to remind me of this, or it's to give me courage or strength. Not that you can't light a candle and say a prayer.
Right.
But the idea.
But as far as the energetic impact of the wavelength of each color,
that you'll have a better experiment if you go find a place that either has stained glass, or whether you use. I was even thinking, I wonder if it would work when you those gels that you can put over lamps that they use a lot for stage, design and that sort of thing. If you could probably experiment with that as well. Just trying, see what it's like when you stand under a blue light versus a purple light versus, you just go clubbing and see how you feel.
Right. Yeah, I read that the Kohler, the bathtub people, they have a bathtub that's like for color healing with the different colored lights. And yeah, I saw a picture of it. It was this beautiful bathtub in like this purple light. And I thought, wow, that would be a serious bathing experience.
Yeah, I know. Wait, and then maybe I'm going to have
someday.
enroll my husband in that for like a birthday present or something. New tub, new magical tub. All right.
Exactly.
So there we are with color. Next week, we are considering talking about, we're kind of in a fluid planning session, but I've been studying a lot about this early Christianity and kind of what was going on at that point. And so I think we're going to talk a little bit about paganism in Rome and early Christianity and how all of that intertwined and where some of our, how that has shaped us now.
Before we part, we'd like to say thanks for listening, and we hope you'll connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We would love to hear from you and appreciate all feedback, shares, and likes.
To learn more and subscribe to our newsletter, visit Intentionists.com. And no matter where you are or what you're creating, we send you love and invite you to breathe and begin.
See you next week.